As I got to know you folks more, I saw that there were really two qualities that, in my mind, had enabled you to grow as much as you have. One was that people have a lot of heart. They have a lot of caring about the environment, high aspirations to preserve our planet, thank goodness. And that aspiration, that heart really came through with people. The second thing I noticed, which in some ways was more unusual, was that you had a real appetite for complexity as an organization. People wanted to think about and appreciate the complex elements and interdependencies of all the things that it wanted to accomplish. So recognizing the political aspects of the environment and the very critical economic development needs that are also associated with environmental preservation. So there was this appreciation for complexity as well. And I began to recognize that there was a connection between the two, that in fact, one way to think about TNC's engine of growth over the years is that folks had a lot of heart that inspired it and motivated people there to want to embrace and think about complexity. And the more you thought about complexity, the greater your aspirations grew. A wonderful engine of growth for an organization. And then as we began to talk about what types of projects you wanted to get involved in, one of the things I heard over and over again is that we have too many priorities. We're just overloaded. And I recognized that the nature of complexity, of seeing so many different angles of things, was that it naturally leads to a proliferation of priorities. Oh, we see this is important, we've got to do that. And we see this is important, and we've got to do that, and this, and we've got to do that. So people were overwhelmed by growing priorities, which, by the way, is not uncommon for a lot of organizations. Everybody feels there are too many things that they have to do, and they all seem equally important. Now, what happened here is that, or what was happening at TNC, it appeared, is that as your priorities increased in relation to a relatively fixed capacity to manage complexity, people felt overloaded. And if we take the head and heart analogy one step further, it's like folks were suffering from indigestion. Their guts were upset by trying to absorb all of these different priorities in the face of a limited capacity to manage complexity. And one of the consequences of that overload, when you have too much to do, is you naturally want to focus on just those things that you can control. And so people stay in their silos and at the same time feel frustrated, because they know if we're really going to realize our aspirations and we're really going to embrace this complexity effectively, we have to step out of our silos. We have to be able to work across the different parts of TNC. But nonetheless, that's what people were saying. And as people focused more and more on what they could control, stayed in their silos, their actual ability to embrace complexity decreased. And so this was a limit to the kind of growth that you were experiencing. In addition, people recognized that in order to embrace complexity and manage complexity, we need to collaborate more. We need to work across those different parts of TNC. But the more we have to do, the less and less time we have to do that collaborative work well. Yeah, we want to schedule a meeting across 5 different departments, but some of us are only available on Mondays and others only available on Tuesdays, and then there's somebody else the third Thursday of the month. And how do we coordinate and collaborate when we know how important that is, but we just have too much to do? And that's another limit to growth, another limit to our ability to embrace complexity. Now, with all of that, I was also hearing that we're actually raising a lot of money. It's not all so grim. We're actually doing well. And I thought, well, where is this ability that you have to keep raising money coming from? And it seemed like it was coming from 2 places. One is your aspirations. I mean, the larger impact you want to have in the world, the more people want to come on board with you. So your level of aspiration contributes to the amount of money you're able to raise. And also the fact that you can think in terms of complex interdependencies between different factors means that you can enrich your funders, potential funders' ideas of what the problems are and how much they need to donate in order to address the complexity that you're pointing out to them. So in fact, funds raised have been going up. That's the good news. The bad news is that as your priorities go up, so do the funds that you require to meet all of those priorities. And the funds required competes with the funds that you've raised. And more often than not, you find that the funds required grow faster than the funds raised, which leads to budget pressure. Isn't that odd? You're raising so much money, and yet you're still experiencing a lot of budget pressure. And one of the consequences of that budget pressure increase is that you don't have as much money as you think you need in order to grow your capacity to manage complexity. So as budget pressure goes up, it puts even more of a damper on your capacity to manage complexity and leads to more of a sense of overload and indigestion, compounding the limits you experience around feeling like you have to stay in your silo. You can't collaborate as much as you know you need to. So that's what I've noticed. And hopefully that kind of insight can be helpful to you